But yeah, this fucking court is it's insane. I mean, I don't think they're gonna rule in a maximally pro-Trump way. I think even they recognize, yeah, you can't just cut a president a blank check to commit crimes with impunity. But I do think they would remand it back to D.C. or district court to just drag it out, because that helps Trump as well.
I was listening to the back and forth. I didn't listen to the whole 3-4 hours, mostly for a few reasons. One of which being it's hard to listen to Trump's lawyer, honestly.
Yeah,
it just was. It was bizarre, the arguments I was hearing, to the point that I thought I must not understand the legalese. I must not understand. He's not actually saying that as long as he finds he confines his actions within the role of the presidency, then an attempted military coup would technically he'd be immune of prosecution from, or an assassination of political opponent. Because I remember saying, like, wait, with this logic, if Trump's immune as president, then he could go assassinate his opponent. And like Biden, Biden take the wheel, and that was the joke. And then they went out and they made the joke real.
Yeah. So here's the thing that frustrates me is, I mean, the questions got pretty pointed from the justices, particularly Justice Jackson, but even Justices Kagan and Sotomayor, they were pretty pointed. And there were even times that, like, Chief Justice Roberts and even Alito and Thomas, you could tell they were like, this is kind of fucked. But I wanted somebody. I wanted somebody, and hope like Sotomayor or Jackson, be like, okay, counsel talking to Trump's attorney, let's get super real. I know we're asking you some hypotheticals. Let's get super real. We asked you the hypothetical, which is, if we believe, or if a president believes that his political rival is corrupt, could he issue a command to have that person assassinated? And you said it depends on whether or not that constitutes an official act. He may need to be impeached and convicted first. So let's get really personal. The current president of the United States is Joseph Robinette Biden, your client's political rival. President Biden has publicly stated that he thinks that Donald Trump is a corrupt authoritarian. So would you care to look into whatever microphone, obviously they don't have cameras, would you care to speak into the microphone and say to the president, who's probably listening right now, that he can assassinate your client, even though you would prefer he didn't, and not be held criminally accountable unless he's first impeached and convicted? Would you like? I invite you to go ahead and say that. I wanted a justice to say that, because you can tell throughout the course of the conversation that even Sauer was like, "Fuck, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me this question, but I'll bite the bullet." Somebody should have asked the question very pointedly like that, because it is an absurd proposition. They also said, hey, okay, what if he wants to sell nuclear codes? Well, I mean, it depends on how it's constructed, but yeah, it could constitute an official act. What if he wanted to stage a coup, which is even worse than trying to assassinate a political rival? Well, I mean, depending on how that's constituted, it could be an official act. So he'd have to. It
was weird because they actually he was like, well, depend on how it's done. And then the justice, I think I could hear it in her voice, like, what do you mean it depends on how it's done? And she like lays out a scenario. It's like, okay, president calls his generals who, as a president of the United States, he'd have regular conversations with, and he tells them, I don't really want to step down. Let's do this thing. And he seemed to give it notion that would be within the bounds of the presidency. That wouldn't be him acting as a private citizen, and therefore he would be immune from it, whether it was successful or not.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, crazy. It's so crazy. And to me, there's so many things that are wrong with this. Just, I don't even know where to begin. One thing somebody in your chat said, William of Orange, wouldn't that be something that the other attorneys say rather than the justices? If they did ask that question, couldn't they be seen as biased? So in the front of the Supreme Court, the attorneys can't ask each other questions. So it's a dialogue strictly between each counsel and the Supreme Court, one at a time. But yeah, a justice could easily ask that question. They wouldn't have to say, I invite you to invite the president to murder your client, but they could say, they could throw names to it. They could, let me put it like this. There is no rule forbidding Justice Jackson from putting names to hypotheticals. She could have said, does that mean? I'm
sorry, the image in my head of just Sotomayor saying, tell President Biden to take the shot. Tell him to take the shot.
Right. And see how that, are you going to say it? Are you going to do it? Does he have the green light? Yeah, but she could have said, one of them could have said, does that mean by your logic that President Biden could assassinate your client and not be criminally prosecuted unless he were first impeached and convicted? You could ask a question like that. They ask pointed questions all the time. But here's the other thing. Donald Trump didn't always have this position. This is the other thing. Fucking conservatives just like forget. I love the memory hole. Like the memory hole for Trump is just insane. In 2020, Dylan, you may not remember this, even though I know you were like neck deep into politics at the time. 2020, a month out from the election, October 8th, 2020, Donald Trump, then President Trump, calls into Maria Bartiromo's show on Fox News, and he says, Bill Barr will be the greatest ever if he indicts Biden and he indicts Obama. Obama, of course, being an ex-president. So besides the fact that we have a sitting president publicly demanding that his political rival be indicted, which is the very thing that they say that Biden has done to Trump, even though they have no proof that Biden has ordered the prosecution of Trump, I digress. That was Donald Trump, a sitting president, demanding the prosecution of a former president. Now, mysteriously, the standard has changed, Dylan. Now, this presidency should be immune from criminal prosecution. I wonder what changed.
I don't know. I think that maybe it was the fact that he was president a little tiny bit. What scares me about this would be groundbreaking if they actually, I don't think that they're going to vote in favor, but it would be groundbreaking if they did. I mean, it would be institution destroying. The whole point of the idea of checks and balances is that the different parts of the government work together to balance each other out so no one institution becomes too powerful. But if you tell one of those institutions you can just do crime and get away with it, and you say that to the most powerful person in the world of all people, I mean, if there's any people that need checks and balances, that need, some borders guiding their actions, it's the ones with the most power. Those are not the ones you take away the checks and balances to, take away the guardrails for. Those are the people you most desperately want the guardrails for. And even if you're like a Trump cultist, like whatever, okay, go sacrifice a goat for the man. That's your business. But one day that power might be held by, I don't know, Kamala Harris.
Right.
What would happen if Trump won the case, but then Biden won re-election?
No, 100%. And then they'd be like, well, what they really meant was that was only for Republican presidents. Then Democratic presidents can indeed be criminally prosecuted. But yeah, like it is. It's so that's why I say this is.
I also hate Southerners.
Yeah, as well. So I grew up in rural Kentucky. So like
you're allowed to make that joke. I'm from Maryland, which is the most south, of course.
Okay, no, listen. You have Jamie Raskin. As far as I'm concerned, Maryland can do no wrong, right? It's just perfect. As long he who holds Raskin is flawless. But to your point, yeah, to me, I think it's important to be consistent on this. Right now, the president is a Democrat, and I don't want Biden to have that power. I don't want Obama to have it, Clinton. I don't want to have a future President Raskin to have that. It is on principle, on balance, no matter who occupies that office. That is untenable. To your point, it's not just an extreme. It would de facto break the Democratic Republic